Hello team, welcome to the Words in Chalk podcast with myself, 76.
I'm Jake Nathan. I'm Jake Nathan Creates on Instagram if you want to follow me.
Please follow him.
I haven't got enough people following me.
No, follow. He's got what? One person following.
Yeah, and that's you.
And that's your other account that you made.
Oh, well, you've just ruined it now.
Yeah. No, follow Jake. He's a super talented chap. He draws and he speaks.
Both those things quite semi-regularly.
Yeah. Because I learned to draw and speak when I was quite young.
Yeah.
I'm okay at it. But you've practiced for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, I got better at it as I've gone on.
Yeah.
Yeah, drawing didn't come till recently. Did that in lockdown, figured that out.
Mate, your Jake Nathan portraits are fantastic.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, trying to get that going.
Yeah.
Enjoying doing it.
Yeah, good.
Go on here, see Andre 3000. He's on there.
He is. Yeah.
An inspiring rapper.
Did he sit still for that long while you was painting, while you was drawing him?
He did.
Because he moves a bit.
Yeah, he does fidget a bit, but I threatened him, so he did.
Waving that Polaroid around all the time, like.
Shaking it.
Yeah, you expect the portrait to be a bit blurry.
Yeah, no, it works out alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good sitter. An excellent rapper. Do you know, I listened to...
That's his Twitter bio. Good sitter, excellent rapper.
Yeah, that is what he goes by now.
Yeah.
I listened to Rick Rubin's podcast, and he had an interview with Andre 3000, and Andre 3000 talks about how he's not making music at the moment because he doesn't feel like he's good enough, and that he's worried that everyone will hate it.
Wow.
And I listened to that and thought, if Andre 3000 is having imposter syndrome, who am I to stop for imposter syndrome?
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Similarly, I was watching a little 10-minute documentary on YouTube yesterday about Jay Electronica. So anyone who isn't familiar, Jay Electronica is an unbelievable MC.
It's one of the best ever.
One of the best ever. But up until about a year ago, had never actually released an album. So he's like one of Jay-Z's best mates. He's always around with Jay-Z. He's signed to Rockefeller. He's got loads of little mixtapes and things that you can get for free on the internet. And he is like a next level, intelligent fucking writer. Like absolutely fucking phenomenal. But the reason he hadn't released an album was exactly that, because of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And
he didn't believe that any stuff that he did was good enough.
Yeah.
Which is just, it doesn't matter who you are, big, small, famous, unfamous, whatever way you want to phrase it. The creative mind is a bizarre thing.
Yeah, I think everyone is completely insecure, and some people just manage to push past it. Yeah. And that's how we get art.
Yeah. You used to get those kind of folks who talk loud all the time.
Yeah.
The ones who are maybe a bit overconfident but say very little.
Yes.
And the people that say very little have often got the best stuff to say. But couldn't
grape in a fruit
fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Constant hip-hop gems, classic lyrics.
Out of nowhere. Yeah, those are the people that go on X Factor, aren't they? They're the ones that make it on because they think they're amazing. They're the next big thing.
Well, I've always thought, I would love to do karaoke, but I cannot sing. But I think I've got a really great and eclectic and tasteful taste in music.
Yeah.
Whereas often people who can do karaoke, who can sing, will do Your Song by Elton John, or Angels by Robbie Williams, or It Hurts Coming Out of My Mouth, Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. And you're like, you've been given this gift.
Yeah.
Why are you fucking singing that?
Yeah, Sweet Caroline sounds much better sung by 90,000 people at Wembley.
No, it doesn't. I already hated that song. And then that song ruined football for me.
Oh yeah, you don't follow it anymore, do you?
No, I've stopped following football, yeah. I haven't stopped following football, that's a massive lie.
No,
massive. Just a Sunderland fan, yeah. That's all I care about, really. All I care about. But again, that's kind of the paradox you get with creatives and non-creatives.
Yeah, the belief in yourself. Yeah. I think everyone needs someone that sort of gets them going. Someone that makes you think, okay, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I heard George the Poet, and he's just incredible, and his style is so conversational. He'll be like, he'll drop into a poem out of out of a conversation you won't even notice for like 32 bars, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, there's a rhyme scheme there, and picking up on his stuff, and he talks about such important stuff as well. And I discovered him at a time where I was just discovering spoken word as well, and like hearing this voice from London, which is where I'm from, like doing this amazing stuff, and I was like, this is something I've got to do. Like, I've always wanted to write, I've always been good with words. Like, I thought about rapping, but only half-heartedly, because I didn't think anyone would listen to me. And then I found spoken word, and I was like, this is my avenue, this is the way to get out and do it, and show, and to do what I love. Because I'd always played with words, but never thought about how to do it properly, how to do it as an art, other than raps that only ever came out in my bedroom.
I'm a really good rapper in my car.
Yeah.
And when I'm alone, I'm like an elite MC.
Yeah, that's why I do car bars.
Bars.
Any other time, I'm no good.
Mate, honestly. Well, funnily enough, just rewinding slightly, we kind of drifted into it a little bit there, but the theme of this episode was around our inspiration.
Yeah.
Like who our inspirations are and what inspires us to write. And funny, you just saying that there, yeah, George the Poet, I'm familiar with him through Pip. So Screw.
Oh, yeah.
I remember he was talking about him for a little while. So yeah, it's like.
Have you listened to his podcast?
George the Poet?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I'm sorry, George, if you're listening.
I think it's called Have You Heard George's Podcast? It's on the BBC. It's won awards, and it's so incredible. It's like, it's a podcast, but he's doing a poem every time, like a 10, 15 minute poem. So he's essentially putting out an album by a podcast. He's so good.
It's clever.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard George's podcast,
no. And when you do
this one first, and then go to him.
yeah. You've got another 18 minutes of us, and then you can go and listen to.
Reward yourself
to
George.
Yeah. Actually, when you finish this podcast, if you listen to it in reverse, it's one massive palindrome. So Jake and I are that fucking clever that this entire thing is scripted, and it's a palindrome.
Yeah, we're the greatest actors you've ever heard.
Yeah.
That's why we can only do it to podcast though, because physically we give it away.
Exactly.
It only works in audio.
So inspirations. So I think in the previous podcast we were talking about what got us into spoken word.
Yeah.
And it's popped into my head as well. A lot of the thing that inspired me to write was actually watching comedy.
Yeah.
Because again, there's something about writing a well-crafted joke that works, and if it's not written or the words are in the right place or it's the wrong word, etc., it's the same as MC and lyrics, poetry, etc. But also with wordplay. Like, you know, from when I was growing up, because I'm like really old, it was the Two Ronnies. And the Two Ronnies are like fantastic. I mean, obviously Four Candles is like the most popular one, but their wordplay was amazing. In my, like, when I was maybe like 7, 8, 9, 10, watching the Two Ronnies with my dad, as well as like Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah, great show.
Which again, improvising words, etc. 40 Towers, just all those little nuances and characters.
I was going to say Monty Python as well.
Monty Python, of course. This parrot is shagged after a long squawk.
That's exactly the way I think about it,
I mean, I love Monty Python. It's very much 50% of it was awful, 50% was incredible.
Yeah. Same as any sketch show.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than the Fast Show, which I think was like 99% perfect.
50-50
for a sketch show.
Too good a ratio for most sketch shows.
Yeah, exactly. But alongside watching comedy was when I was growing up through the 90s and late 80s and listening to hip-hop. So I think the mix between the wordplay in hip-hop and the wordplay in comedy, I think it's kind of led me to my love of words now.
Yeah, I've heard the phrase, poetry is the right words in the right order at the right time. And that's why it's good, but I don't think that's why it doesn't explain everything about poetry. That explains good poetry and good comedy as well. Comedy is very much about how you say the words, how they're delivered, how they're put across. So I think that's something I've not thought about before, but I think that's a really good point. Like the perfectly timed joke, like when you see the expert comedians, is very much like poetry in getting the right words there to make people feel the right things when you want them to feel them is probably a lot of similarities there, right, in the two.
Yeah. I think I like to incorporate some of that into my spoken word pieces.
Yeah, you love a bit of comedy.
I do like a bit of comedy in mine, because the naive mind, and I include myself in this, from maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, is when you hear the word poetry, you probably think of men in like ruffled collars and big pantaloons writing really pretentious whatever, like I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Or a bit later on you think of like the pretentious quote unquote in like coffee shops.
Yeah, roll neck,
scarf, often wearing a scarf with a takeaway coffee cup. Yeah. In my observational experience, I'm not, broad stroking and judging anybody by any stretch, but again, like you do think that naive thing. It's about, I'm going to talk about my really, really deep, sincere and serious feelings in this poetry, which kind of put me off a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think out of recent, when you got, obviously mentioned George the Poet, Pip, etc., 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 when you realise that you can literally talk about anything you want to. So I think I've consciously decided not to be very serious and dark. Yeah. But when I do want to be serious and dark, I'll do it with comedy.
Yeah, with humour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, I had no interest in poetry for such a long time. We did it at school, and there were a few that I liked. I remember doing half cast and thinking this is pretty good. Yeah, you're not allowed to say it anymore.
No.
But that poem was the one that explained it to me. Yeah, and you've got your anthologies and you're looking for all this really dry stuff taught in a really dry way, and you're just like, who cares about poetry? It's like this poncy thing. But I think like that's the good thing about spoken word poetry, and why I define myself as a spoken word poet, because hearing poetry spoken is a completely different thing. And I think spoken word poetry as well in particular is quite a working class outlet. When you go to a poetry show, you don't, like a spoken word poetry show, you don't see lots of, I don't think I've ever met a posh person at a poetry show. Like, no. It's very much...
Well, the six I've been to, I'll be honest, my caveat is I'm very new to this, by the way. So
yeah, we're both fairly new. Yeah. I've been doing it like 3 years now, but with an interruption of a pandemic. Yeah. So I'm not an expert by any means, anyway. But
I'm not saying it's a coincidence, but you did a couple of live shows, and they went that badly. There was a global pandemic to stop you doing some more.
Yeah, I was on stage at the time when it was announced.
Was it in Wuhan?
Yeah.
You did that live show in Wuhan.
Suddenly this bloke shouted, everyone go home and lock your doors.
Yeah.
And I was just left standing there, and I had to get a flight home. It was weird. It's not the best show that I've ever had. No. Not the worst either, though.
But its ripples were felt around the world, so...
Yeah.
Every cloud.
Yeah, there was a bat in at the time.
Oh, really?
And he looked really ill suddenly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man alive.
Yeah, but like poetry is the way it's represented in schools and things like that is not a fun thing. I think until you see it being performed, spoken word poetry. Finding Deaf Poetry Jam for me showed me what spoken word poetry was.
Just the title Deaf Poetry Jam sounds cool.
Yeah.
Spoken word poetry sounds cool.
Yeah.
I like spoken vocals as well, started using that a little bit. But again, one of my little barriers, because of a perception and judgment thing, is just the word like poem and poetry.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound edgy.
No.
Or dangerous or risky. And obviously being like a massive hip hop fan, I'm used to something looking cool or edgy or dangerous. Funnily enough, a kind of a related story is if you're familiar with the De La Soul album 3 Feet High and Rising, the album artwork, it's pink with yellow daisies on it, and the 3 MCs, so you've got Mace, Dave and
really cool album
Plug. Well, the album cover is the reason I didn't listen to it forever.
Because it looked too soft.
Yeah, I'm used to like NWA and Public Enemy and although Beastie Boys, and then I've got like a pink and yellow cartoon cover. Yeah, it's one of the greatest albums of all time. Yeah. So again, I literally don't judge or whatever by its cover. But again, that's why I struggled a bit with poems and poetry.
Yeah, I think if you look at that and then you look at like Odd Future and like the artistic direction that Tyler took with all of their stuff. Very much drawn from that, I think. Lots of pinks and yellows and yeah. It's definitely like a different side. There's page poetry which still exists, but spoken word poetry is not that. Like I want to put out a poetry collection, a book, but I want it to be full of poems that I will perform on a stage. I don't want anything to be just to be like admired on the page. That's not what I enjoy about poetry. I like poetry that is performed and you get the emotion from the poet.
Yeah, because there's a particular cadence to. Excuse me, I burped, everybody. Jake and I have had a really nice chili with coconut rice and creme fraiche, which is, I believe, is French for fresh cream.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
It is. So when you perform the poem, you have a particular cadence, you can drop words here and there, which if you were just to read that as an audience, or the person reading the book, you might not get those nuances or that.
Yeah.
And when you write yours, because when I write mine on my notes on my phone, because I'm in the year 2022, I format where the words are, so I have like little 3 dots if there's a whatever, or I have like one word
to put a pause
on a line, so I know
the
cadence of the poem.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. Like when you read poetry from a poetry book, you sort of have to make it up yourself the way it goes.
Yeah.
So I remember when I first started doing spoken word, I was doing it to be performed. So I wrote out like raps, I wrote out in bars. And I knew where the gaps were and where the breaths were and where the emphasis was. I remember saying to a friend of mine who did page poetry and spoken word poetry, like, what's the trick? How do you, when you're writing it, how do you know when to end the line and stuff like that? And he was just like, I don't know. Like, everyone's just making it up. They're literally ending lines where they want people to take a breath and whatever. And like, and some page poets only write poems that work on the page. You have to. It's the way that they look on the page rather than what the words say. So when I started writing mine in a way that I wanted people to read it, I literally did that. I might have a line with 5 words in it and a line with 2, but that's the way that I want it delivered. I want a breath taken at the end of that line, and then I want a breath taken after the next 2 words. But that's the beautiful thing about enjoying spoken word, is that you don't have to worry about any of that. If you want to read it, you want to buy a spoken word poet's book, you can. But you can sit in an audience and watch an expert do something that they're enjoying, and you can just take it in. It takes away the barriers of how do I read this? How am I supposed to do that? What does this mean? It opens it up to everybody, which is why I think it's like a working class art. It's like back in the day, standing up in front of the pub and telling a story. Like there's no barriers there. All you're doing is listening to words. And I think that's the beautiful thing about spoken word poetry. I know that, like, dyslexic poets who cannot write a poem down, but they can memorise a poem. They can write it in their head and memorise it. It takes these barriers away and opens it up to everybody. It takes the elitism out of it. The bloke sitting in his roll neck in a coffee shop in his beret, and pointy moustache. It's not, poetry don't belong to them.
In his galoshes. Or Birkenstocks.
Galoshes just makes me think of Mighty Boosh now, the crack fox.
I never got on with Mighty Boosh.
No, some people didn't.
No. I love Noel Fielding.
Yeah.
As Noel Fielding, being him. Not a fan of his stand-up or his acting work.
Yeah,
I think actually I've had this conversation before. There's some people who are naturally funny, but not scripted funny, and vice versa.
Yes, I can see what you mean there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. That page poets and spoken word.
There you go. Mate, all these things. We're uncovering so much stuff at the minute.
Just bringing it back round.
So in relation to inspiration, what inspires you to write a particular poem? So there's a blank page, there's an unwritten poem. What gives you that sudden inspiration to write something?
I don't think I ever start with a blank page. I don't sit down to be like, I'm going to write a poem. It'll be stuff that's happening in day-to-day life that will make me feel a certain way, and I'll get an idea from that, and then I'll start writing. So the blank page isn't an issue for me, because I'm not sitting down like I've got to write a poem right now. I'm going to write it when I write it and when I have the inspiration. So a lot of my stuff is about my mental health, or about politics, or about the working class experience. So
I don't listen to any of your stuff.
Yeah, you hate it all.
Yeah,
it's weird. I was doing a podcast together.
Yeah, and I've left it till now to tell you as well.
Yeah, it's quite a slap in the face halfway through, or like 2/3 of the way through the podcast. I'll just be laying in bed and having a bad mental health day, and something will pop into my head, and I'll see it as a metaphor or something visual, and then use that to start a poem. Like, I'll get the first line, and that's when I start writing a poem. I'm not looking at a blank page and thinking I need a first line. I get the line and then I start. Or like my political stuff is almost always the Tories have just done something that's massively pissed me off, and I'm very angry and need to get it out of me. So I start writing poems insulting Tories, and
one an hour essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's given me a lot of inspiration. It'd be I don't know. Labour are good at doing it as well now, though. Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Let's try not to go political.
Don't go too political, but essentially you vote for what you think is the better of two evils.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it doesn't matter who's in charge, because the same policies, agendas will be pushed through anyway. It's completely irrelevant who's in charge.
Oh, mate, it almost feels like that. I'm sort of done with big politics.
Yeah.
Like, let's work with the kids and teach them critical thinking, and let them grow up in a world where they can see these things happening and make better decisions.
Mate, wouldn't it be great if schools taught critical thinking, mental health and self-care, and life skills like money management and budgeting and general being a human being?
Yeah, you'd almost think that they
rather than the lies in the history books.
Yeah. But like we say, we're not political.
It's history, not his story.
If you want to learn history, Akala's talk on ancient Egypt at Cambridge. Have you seen it? Incredible.
No, but I do love
Akala is brilliant
both
anyway.
of those things.
Yeah, but just like completely turns what you know about what you think you know about ancient Egypt on its head.
Yeah. Well, I think I watch enough YouTube videos to
We've got time for one more. We need sleep.
So what inspires, like when I start, like if there's that the figurative blank page, it's a line will pop into my head. So it could be, I could be watching the telly and there'll be a sentence and I'm like, I've got a rhyme for that. Yeah. And suddenly the entire thing, like the concept of it is there. Yeah. Or I'll just be, I don't know, driving to work and like a multi-syllabic rhyme, like for 2 lines of the poem will pop into my head. I'm like, shit. So but I have to either stop the car or wait till I get to the car park at work and make a note of them. And that's kind of what inspires the piece. Yeah. Or like I've got one about tea. That was Tasha's idea. I said something, I could write something about anything. So I'll write something about a cup of tea then. Yeah. So I have, or myself and her are doing a lot of self-care at the minute, like meditation, positive thinking, manifesting, etc. So I've written one about self-care. So like it's like either something you're experiencing, or that line could just pop into your head.
Yeah. I think a good practice as well. I'm not someone who goes massively in for like writing groups and stuff like that. Maybe I'd improve if I did, but prompts are quite good in terms of just an exercise in writing. Like here is a theme, write it, and it can be as broad as you like. But there's during National Poetry Writing Month, which I don't massively get behind because the name of it's too long and the hashtag is ridiculous. It's NaProWriMo. NaProWriMo.
Yeah, NPRM. It's not even an acronym.
No, they don't go with the they go with like the first 3 letters of each word. But during lockdown,
it's bad word usage, bad wordplay
from poets.
You'd expect more.
Yeah, but during lockdown, I followed. I think it's Apples and Snakes, which is a poetry company or charity. Put up a prompt every day, and I was writing to their prompts, and that helped me in terms of like thinking outside the box and doing different stuff. So sometimes like getting a writing challenge or like getting someone to say, why don't you do this, and having to think outside of your normal process will help improve your process, because if you can get it to work on something that is not necessarily like in your wheelhouse, it isn't like a smooth transition, when you come to doing stuff that is, it all happens more quickly. So I think that
I think that, like you say, it's the challenge that inspires me as well. Like in most things, like I want to be better than myself.
Always,
And if I'm going to do something, if I was in the audience, would I connect with it? And that's kind of my challenge. I don't think I'm anywhere near that level at the minute, but it's like my North Star, as it were.
But you are, in like every time I see you perform, you're better than you were before.
Thanks.
So you're going through that process. And it's like being very new to it as you are. It's all a learning process all the time, and you're only going to get better and better and better because you've got the passion to be better. Because either like you get up with poets that have been doing it for ages, and you're as good as them, you could easily be like, cool, I'm a poet now.
Tick.
Done. But you don't. You want to be the best you can be. So like you're gonna keep improving, and you have to be passionate about it. That's the ultimate thing. If you're writing poems and you're like, oh, this is rubbish, stop writing poems. Like there's something else you're gonna enjoy more. As long as you're passionate about it and you want to be better, like that's your inspiration.
How comfortable are you with like seeking feedback from people?
I don't think I'm amazing at taking feedback. I will take it, and if it's someone that I know is good and they're telling me stuff, I will think about it. But I'm not someone who seeks it. I don't think, and that's probably a weakness of mine. I could probably improve if I went out and said, what could I be doing better? But I am quite self-critical in myself, so at the moment that's working enough for me to improve. But maybe to get to the next level, that is something that I would have to do, is go and ask for feedback. I know
it's a weird question, but like it's again just related to at work. We look for feedback all the time so that we can improve. And again, the inspiration theme is that inspires me. So I will read my poems to Tasha, and she will give me an objective audience opinion. One of my favourite bits of feedback came from a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Chris Glasson, of Hardcore Listing podcast fame, who told me once that my beats were boring. He did explain why. But I've never had better feedback from somebody. Because that was probably about 6, 7, 8 years ago. But I still use that filter and Chris's advice when I make stuff. Because I really don't want my stuff to be boring. So I'm really happy with critical feedback. Like the worst feedback is when someone goes, yeah, it's good. Like at work, like someone today was like, oh, I enjoyed your spoken word. I'm like, cool. Have you got any feedback? And they're like, oh, it's good. You know, you're like, the good doesn't help me. Like, maybe give me some critical feedback.
I think Chris is...
Because it's subjective.
Chris is good at that. I think, like, he's pretty blunt and to the point, so, like, and stuff like that is much more helpful than, that's good. And thinking about it now, like, having said I don't seek feedback, I do send my stuff to people that I know I respect their opinions. Certain people that I'll check stuff with. Like when I'm writing raps, I'll send stuff to you. Like, is this good? And I've got certain poets I send stuff to. My mate Tommy, I'll always check in and stuff with him. He takes forever to listen. I have to bug him, but like I'll just be like, is this what I think it is? Is it good? And he'll like just little things. Like there was one poem where I had some repetition in it, and he was like, you needed a few more lines of that repetition, and I did that, and I was like, yeah, that works so much better. So I want like the sharp, snappy, constructive, I can do some of this feedback. I don't want unsolicited criticisms from people.
No.
which
That's why you have to seek it rather than
So yeah,
someone sidling up to you and thinking they can destroy your work.
I hate the idea of someone like editing my book, because I feel like they're going to come to me like, you should change this word, and I'm like, fuck you don't understand the poem.
Yeah, then set fire to the manuscript.
Yeah. But then again, I guess I'll have to choose an editor that I like when that comes to it.
Yeah, I'll edit it for you, friends.
Thanks,
I won't change anything.
No.
I just have complete faith and trust that it'll be perfect.
Well, it will be,
Yeah.
which is what I need an editor to tell me.
Yeah. I get on that bombshell. We've hit 30 minutes.
Oh, a long one.
It was, yeah. It flew by though.
Good.
I think we maybe scraped the surface of inspiration.
Yeah, I think we could probably come
on
back
that.
to it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do another episode in the future of that. But as always, you could have been anywhere in the world tonight.
And you were here.
You were here with me and Jake and Grace. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will you do it again? I hope so.
Hope so. Anyway, team, look after yourselves.
Follow us on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Words.in.chalk.
Yeah.
Have a look at our upcoming event. It's got a spectacular lineup. £5 a ticket is an absolute bargain for the level of talent you're going to see. We're in Chalkwell Park at Metal. Come down and see us. Follow me and Stu as well. I'm Jake Nathan Crates. You are 76.
76 spoken. Yeah. I'll do another ending just in case this comes out after. Thanks for coming, everyone. It was packed.
Such a great show.
Yeah, I didn't think you could have that many encores.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't think you could. Standing ovations, the amount of flowers and knickers that were thrown on the stage.
I can't believe we had to broadcast it into the park just so everyone could hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the satellite link up with Japan and Norway, because the amount of requests and love that we'd be getting from
it was unbelievable. Yeah. And when Snoop Dogg turned up,
Snoop was incredible.
He really wanted to see MEP.
No, he did. Yeah.
I can blame him.
Yeah. Well, he was the one throwing the knickers as well.
Yeah, he did have a lot with him.
He did. Yeah. He always carries on some spare knickers in the Sainsbury's bag.
Only Sainsbury's.
Only Sainsbury's. Yeah. He's not a pikey. No. Snoop. No. Well, Sainsbury's. Respect to them. You know where stuff is when you go in Sainsbury's. I recognise and respect their layout.
Yeah, I've always said that about you. You do respect Sainsbury's.
I do respect Sainsbury's. Yeah.
Words,